Imagine traveling back in time, more than 2,500 years ago. We are in ancient Italy, a land of many peoples and cultures. At this time, money as we know it did not exist everywhere. People often traded goods directly. A farmer might trade a sack of wheat for a clay pot. But this was changing. In the south of Italy, Greek colonies founded new cities. These cities, part of Magna Graecia, or Great Greece, brought with them a revolutionary idea from their homeland: the coin. These early coins were pieces of silver, stamped with an image. Each city had its own symbol, like a bull, an ear of wheat, or a dolphin. This was more than just money. It was an identity card for the city that made it. Further north, in what is now Tuscany, lived the mysterious Etruscans. They were a sophisticated people, known for their art and their wealth from metal mines. The Etruscans also began to make their own forms of money. At first, they used rough pieces of bronze, called... These were not really coins, but more like lumps of metal with a certain weight. You had to weigh them every time you made a transaction. It was a simple system, but it was a start. It showed that people needed a common way to measure value. These bronze pieces were the ancestors of the first true Roman coins, a first step on a long and fascinating journey through the history of money in Italy. The Greek coins of southern Italy were true works of art. Cities like Sybaris, Croton, and Tarentum produced beautiful silver coins. The designs were incredibly detailed. They often showed gods, heroes, or symbols of the city's prosperity. For example, coins from Tarentum often depicted a man riding a dolphin, a reference to the mythical story of Taras, the city's founder. These coins were not just for local use. Because they were made of precious silver and had a trusted design, they were used for trade all across the Mediterranean. They announced the power and culture of these Greek cities to the world, becoming a standard of exchange in a complex network of ancient commerce. So in this early period, Italy was a mosaic of different monetary traditions. In the south, the elegant and standardized silver coins of the Greeks dominated trade. They represented a sophisticated economic system. In central Italy, the Etruscans and other Italic peoples were still using heavy, cast bronze. It was a more primitive system, based purely on the weight of the metal. These two worlds, the Greek and the Italic, were about to collide. A new power was rising on the banks of the Tiber River, Rome. The Romans would take inspiration from both traditions, the Greek artistry and the Italic reliance on bronze, to create something entirely new and powerful. The story of Roman money begins with bronze. Following the tradition of their Italic neighbors, the early Romans used heavy cast bronze coins. The most famous of these was was enormous. It was supposed to weigh 1 Roman pound, which is about 324 grams. Imagine carrying a few of those in your pocket. These large bronze coins were often marked with images, such as the head of the god Janus, who had 2 faces looking to the past and the future. Other denominations, like the half ann and the a quarter of ann, were also produced. This system, based on heavy bronze, was called, meaning heavy bronze. It was a declaration of Rome's growing influence in central Italy. However, as Rome expanded its territory and came into contact with the Greek cities of the south, its monetary system had to evolve. The heavy bronze coins were not practical for large-scale trade or for paying soldiers on distant campaigns. Rome needed a coin that was more valuable and easier to carry. Around 211 BC, during the difficult years of the war against Hannibal, Rome introduced a revolutionary new coin, the denarius. It was a small silver coin, beautifully made and much more convenient than the heavy. The denarius was worth 10 bronze, and its name literally means containing 10. This coin would become the backbone of the Roman economy for centuries. The introduction of the denarius marked the creation of a true Roman monetary system. Now, Rome had a structured bimetallic system. There was the silver denarius for large transactions, military pay, and taxes. Alongside it, the bronze and its fractions continued to be used for everyday purchases in the marketplace. A Roman might use a denarius to buy a larger item, but would use bronze coins to buy bread, vegetables, or a drink at a local tavern. This system was flexible and effective. It helped to unify the increasingly vast territories under Roman control, creating a single economic zone where Roman money was the standard. On the face of these republican coins, we see the story of Rome unfolding. Early denarii often featured the goddess Roma, a personification of the city's power. On the back, they frequently showed the Dioscuri, the mythical twin horsemen Castor and Pollux, who were believed to have helped Rome win a legendary battle. As time went on, powerful Roman families began to put symbols of their own history on the coins. A general might commemorate a great victory, or a politician might remind people of a famous ancestor. The coins became a form of political propaganda, a way for the powerful men of Rome to advertise their achievements to the public. When the Roman Republic transformed into the Roman Empire under Augustus, the coinage changed too. The emperor's portrait now appeared on the front of the coins. This was a radical shift. Before, coins celebrated Rome or powerful families, but now they celebrated one man, the emperor. Every time someone used a coin, they were holding a small image of their ruler. This was an incredibly powerful tool for propaganda. The emperor's face, along with his titles, traveled to the furthest corners of the empire. It was a constant reminder of who was in charge. The coins announced the emperor's power, his legitimacy, and his connection to the gods. The two most important coins of the Roman Empire were the silver denarius and a new gold coin, the aureus. The aureus was the most valuable coin in circulation. It was made of nearly pure gold and was used for major payments such as buying land, paying legionary bonuses, or conducting international trade. An aureus was worth 25 denarii. Owning an aureus was a sign of significant wealth. These gold coins often carried finely detailed portraits of the emperors and their families, or depicted scenes of military triumphs and religious ceremonies. They were not just money. They were miniature monuments to the glory of the emperor and the empire. The silver denarius remained the workhorse of the imperial economy. It was the coin used to pay the soldiers, the civil servants, and to collect taxes. Its value was stable for a long time, which helped the economy of the empire to prosper. However, over the centuries, as emperors faced financial difficulties, they began to debase the coinage. This means they mixed the silver with less valuable metals like copper, while trying to keep the coin's official value the same. People eventually noticed that the new coins were not as good as the old ones. This led to inflation and economic instability, especially during the crisis of the 3rd century. The designs on the back of imperial coins tell us a great deal about the history of the period. They celebrated military victories with images of captured enemies or trophies. They promoted peace and prosperity with figures like pax, peace, or abundantia, abundance. They announced the building of new monuments, like the Colosseum. When a new heir was born, coins would be issued to celebrate the continuation of the dynasty. For historians and archaeologists, these coins are like a small, durable newspaper. They provide a timeline of emperors, major events, and the values that the Roman state wanted to promote to its citizens across its vast and diverse empire. After the Western Roman Empire fell in the 5th century AD, Italy entered a period of great change and uncertainty. The single unified Roman monetary system broke apart. However, Roman coinage did not disappear entirely. In the East, the Roman Empire continued with its capital in Constantinople. We call this the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantines continued to produce a magnificent gold coin called the solidus. This coin was the direct successor to the Roman aureus and was famous throughout the Mediterranean for its purity and stable weight. For centuries, the Byzantine solidus was the most trusted international currency, the dollar of the Middle Ages. In Italy itself, the situation was complex. The peninsula was divided. The Byzantines controlled parts of the south and areas around Ravenna. In these regions, Byzantine coins, including the gold solidus and various bronze coins, were the official currency. You could see the portrait of the emperor in Constantinople on the money used in a market in Sicily or Puglia. This showed that a connection to the old Roman world still existed. The Byzantine presence ensured that a high-quality gold coinage continued to circulate in Italy, influencing the economic life of the entire peninsula, even in areas they did not directly rule. Meanwhile, new Germanic kingdoms emerged in other parts of Italy. First came the Ostrogoths, and later the Lombards. These new rulers also needed to produce coins. At first, they often imitated Roman and Byzantine coins. They understood that the image of the Roman emperor was a symbol of authority and trust. So, on their early coins, they would put the name and portrait of the Byzantine emperor, but perhaps add a small symbol or monogram of their own king. It was a clever way to make their money acceptable to the local population, who were used to Roman currency. It was a transitional period, blending old Roman traditions with new Germanic power. Over time, these kingdoms began to issue coins that were more distinctively their own. The Lombards, for example, started to replace the emperor's portrait with simpler designs, like a flower or a cross, and eventually the name of their own king. The coins became thinner, and the quality of the metal sometimes varied. The unified system of the Romans was gone, replaced by a patchwork of different local currencies. Gold became rarer, especially in the north. Silver and bronze coins became more common for daily transactions. This monetary fragmentation reflected the political fragmentation of Italy after the fall of Rome, setting the stage for the rise of new powers. As the Middle Ages moved forward, a new force started to shape Italy, those independent city-states. Cities like Florence, Venice, Genoa, and Milan, they grew incredibly wealthy from trade, banking, and manufacturing. These places became real economic powerhouses, and, well, they needed a stable, high-quality currency to support all their international business. So, right around the middle of the 13th century, these cities began minting their own spectacular gold coins. This was a huge turning point, a return to major gold coinage produced within Italy for the first time in centuries. These new coins would go on to dominate European finance for a really long time. In 1252, Florence introduced a new gold coin called the florin. On one side, there was the image of a lily flower, which is actually the symbol of the city. Fiore means flower in Italian. On the other side, you'd see Saint John the Baptist, who is the patron saint of Florence. The florin was made of pure gold and had a very stable weight, making it super popular among merchants and bankers all across Europe. People trusted it everywhere, from England all the way to the Middle East. The florin was so successful that, honestly, a lot of other rulers in Europe started making their own coins that copied its design and quality. It basically became the new international standard. But Florence wasn't the only city with ambition. Its great rival, Venice, launched its own gold coin in 1284, the ducat, or zecchino. On one side, it showed the Venetian Doge, the city's leader, kneeling before Saint Mark, the patron saint of Venice. On the other side, it depicted Christ. Like the florin, the Venetian ducat was famous for its purity and consistent weight. The Venetian Republic was a maritime superpower, and its ducats traveled everywhere its merchant ships went. For over 500 years, Venice produced this coin almost unchanged in design or quality, which really shows how reliable it was and how strong Venice's commercial power remained. The success of the florin and the ducat just goes to show the immense economic power of the Italian city-states. These coins, weren't the coins of a king or an emperor, but of a republic of merchants. They stood as symbols of civic pride and commercial integrity. The wealth these cities generated fueled the cultural explosion we call the Renaissance. The very same bankers and merchants who used florins and ducats to finance trade expeditions were also the ones who paid artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. So the gold of Florence and Venice wasn't just an economic tool. It was really the fuel for one of the most creative periods in all of human history. The Renaissance was, honestly, a time of incredible artistic achievement in Italy, and this creativity was reflected in the coinage of the period. Coins were no longer just pieces of metal for buying and selling. They became, miniature sculptures. Rulers of the many Italian states, from the Sforza in Milan to the Gonzaga in Mantua and the popes in Rome saw coins as a way to project their power and sophistication. They hired the best artists and sculptors of the day, including famous figures like Benvenuto Cellini, to design their money. The goal was to create coins that were not only valuable, but also beautiful, a testament to the glory of the ruler. One of the most important innovations of this era was the teston. This was a large silver coin, much larger than the medieval deniers. Its name comes from the Italian word testa, meaning head, because it featured a large, realistic, and often very flattering portrait of the ruler. This was a return to the Roman imperial tradition of putting the monarch's head on the coin, but with a new Renaissance style. The portraits were incredibly detailed and lifelike, capturing the personality of the individual. These coins were designed to impress. They were a form of portable art that circulated among the people and traveled to foreign courts, advertising the culture and magnificence of the Italian princes. The popes in Rome were also major producers of artistic coins. The Papal States issued a wide variety of currency, from the gold scudo to the silver giulio and the bronze baiocco. The coins of popes like Julius II and Leo X are famous for their beautiful designs. They often featured religious scenes, allegorical figures, or images of the great building projects happening in Rome, such as the new St. Peter's Basilica. These coins served a dual purpose. They were currency for the papal territories, but they were also instruments of the Catholic Church, spreading religious messages and celebrating the power and prestige of the papacy throughout Christendom. The technical skill of mint masters reached new heights during the Renaissance. They perfected the art of engraving the dies used to strike the coins, allowing for incredible detail and high relief. The lettering became clearer and more elegant, often using classical Roman styles. Every element of the coin was carefully considered to create a harmonious and powerful design. Looking at a Renaissance coin is like looking at a small piece of sculpture. It tells us about the politics, religion, and artistic ideals of the time. It is a perfect example of how, in Renaissance Italy, art and power were deeply connected. After the Renaissance, Italy remained politically divided for centuries. From the 17th to the early 19th century, the peninsula was a patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and foreign-controlled territories. This political fragmentation was perfectly mirrored in its coinage. A traveler journeying from Milan to Naples would have to change their money several times. The Kingdom of Naples had its piastra and carlino. The Papal States in the center had the scudo. The Grand Duchy of Tuscany had its own currency, and so did the Duchy of Savoy in the northwest. This made trade within Italy complicated and inefficient, a constant reminder of the country's disunity. The arrival of Napoleon Bonaparte at the end of the 18th century brought a dramatic, though temporary, change. As Napoleon conquered Italy, he reorganized the territory into new republics and kingdoms allied with France. He also sought to reform the chaotic monetary system. He introduced a new currency based on the French franc system, called the lira. This new lira was a decimal coin, meaning it was divided into 100 centesimi. This was a modern logical system that replaced the confusing old currencies. For a brief period, large parts of Italy shared a common currency, giving people a taste of monetary unity. After Napoleon's defeat in 1815, Italy was once again divided by the great powers of Europe. The old rulers and the old currencies returned. The Austrian Empire controlled Lombardy and Venetia, issuing their own money there. The Bourbon kings were restored in Naples, bringing back their traditional coins. The Pope, once again, ruled the Papal States. The brief dream of unity seemed to be over. However, the idea of a united Italy, the Risorgimento, was growing stronger. Patriots and thinkers argued that Italy needed to become one nation, with one government, one language, and of course, one currency. The coins from this period before unification are incredibly diverse and tell the story of this fragmented land. There were the coins of the Kingdom of Sardinia, ruled by the House of Savoy, which would eventually lead the unification movement. There were the coins of the short-lived revolutionary governments, like the Roman Republic of 1849, which issued their own currency as a symbol of their defiance. Collecting coins from this era is like assembling a puzzle of pre-unification Italy. Each piece, with its different ruler, language and value, represents a separate state, all existing on the verge of being swept away by the powerful tide of history. In 1861, the Kingdom of Italy was finally proclaimed, with King Victor Emmanuel II of the House of Savoy as its first king. One of the new kingdom's most urgent tasks was to create a single, unified currency to replace the many different coins that were circulating. The government decided to adopt the lira, which had been used by the Kingdom of Sardinia and was based on the Napoleonic decimal system. The new Italian lira was declared the sole legal currency of the nation. It was divided into 100 centesimi. This was a powerful symbol of unity. From the Alps to Sicily, all Italians would now use the same money. The first coins of the Kingdom of Italy featured the portrait of King Victor Emmanuel II. His profile, with its famous large mustache, became a familiar sight to all Italians. The coins were produced in gold for the 100, 50, and 20 lire pieces, silver for the 5, 2, and 1 lira pieces, and bronze for the smaller centesimi denominations. The designs were formal and traditional, meant to convey the stability and authority of the new state. The back of the coins featured the coat of arms of the House of Savoy, a simple shield with a cross, surrounded by a laurel wreath. This new uniform coinage helped to bind the nation together economically and psychologically. The lira served Italy through the reigns of 3 kings: Victor Emmanuel II, Umberto I, and Victor Emmanuel III. The coins changed with each new monarch, with the king's portrait always appearing on the front. During World War I, the precious metals like gold and silver disappeared from circulation as they were needed for the war effort. The government began to issue coins made from cheaper materials like nickel and a special bronze alloy. These coins, often called war coinage, tell a story of difficult times and national sacrifice. After the war, the lira suffered from inflation, and its value decreased significantly. After World War I, the fascist regime under Benito Mussolini came to power. The coinage of this period reflects fascist ideology. While the king's portrait remained on the coins by law, the designs on the back were changed to include fascist symbols. The most common symbol was the fascio littorio, a bundle of rods with an axe, which was an ancient Roman symbol of authority that Mussolini adopted for his party. Other designs glorified Roman history, agricultural labor, and the idea of a new, powerful Italian empire. The coins became a tool for spreading fascist propaganda into the daily lives of the Italian people. After the end of World War II and the fall of fascism, the Italian people voted in a referendum in 1946 to abolish the monarchy and establish a republic. This was a new beginning for Italy, and the coinage had to reflect this profound change. The coins of the Italian Republic no longer featured a king. Instead, they were decorated with symbols of democracy, labor, and Italy's rich cultural heritage. The designs were chosen to represent the values of the new republic. For example, the new 10 lire coin showed an olive branch, a symbol of peace, and a plough, representing agriculture and labor, which are mentioned in the first article of the Italian Constitution. The coins of the Republic era are beloved by many Italians and are full of nostalgic memories. There was the small aluminum 1 lira coin with a cornucopia, the horn of plenty, and the 2 lire coin with a bee, a symbol of industriousness. The 50 lire coin featured the god Vulcan, forging a tool at his anvil, celebrating Italian industry. The 100 lire coin, one of the most common, showed the goddess Minerva and was the perfect size for use in telephones and vending machines. In 1982, Italy introduced its first ever bimetallic coin, the 500 lire. It had a bronze center and a stainless steel ring, an innovative design that was later adopted by many other countries. In 2002, Italy, along with 11 other European nations, made another historic monetary change. It adopted the euro. The Italian lira, which had served the nation for 140 years, was retired. This was a huge moment, both economically and emotionally. For the first time, Italians would share a currency not just with each other, but with millions of other Europeans. The transition was a massive logistical effort, as billions of new euro coins and banknotes had to be introduced, and trillions of lire had to be withdrawn. Italians had a short period where both currencies could be used, a time of confusion and calculation for many. Each country in the Eurozone can design the national side of its Eurocoins. Italy chose its designs through a public television vote. The Italian public selected a series of iconic images from their nation's artistic and architectural heritage. The 2 euro coin features a portrait of the great poet Dante Alighieri, drawn by Raphael. The 1 euro coin shows Leonardo da Vinci's famous Vitruvian Man. Other coins depict Botticelli's Venus, the Roman Colosseum, and the Mall Antonelliana in Turin. In this way, even as Italy embraced a shared European currency, its coins continued to be small ambassadors of its unique and extraordinary cultural history, a story told from ancient Rome to the Renaissance.